Good afternoon, dear Chabura. Going through an entire Torah Shabbat Peh with Rambam and I'll lead one Perek a day. And we're about to conclude Hilchis Sefer Torah, the final Perek, Perek Yud, which is going to discuss, first of all, going to summarize all the psulim that can invalidate a Sefer Torah, and then finally the halachas that are very important to us, which is the arum of Yiddishkeit, the rules and the dinim Chacham have instituted in order that we respect the Torah, and that will maintain that we take all the dinim of covet for a Sefer Torah, and in which case one is allowed to sell a Sefer Torah. At what point is a person going as a Sefer Torah? How and the like. Let's see it inside Perek Yud Halacha Aleph Tzei Salamin. In summation, we have 23 things. There are 20 things. Each one of them can invalidate a Sefer Torah. If one of them does occur in a Sefer Torah, it doesn't mean you have to be going as it. Rather, at that point, it becomes like a chumash that children use. It doesn't have the kedusha of Sefer Torah. However, it's the kedusha of Sefer Kodesh. It's like that they teach children, they learn from. It doesn't have the level of sanctity, the level of holiness of the Sefer Torah. Hence, one will not be allowed to read to lane Shein Chamishi Shabbos in such a Sefer Torah. But Elohein, they are the following. First of all, it was written on a impure behema. Beis nichtav al or behema tahira. However, she'inam obed. It's takatardik behema, but it was not processed with afatzim as Ram described, or any other way that makes it prepared. Gimel shayim obed shelo sefer Torah. It was taka processed, but not for the intention for a sefer Torah. Dale, the fourth, shenichtav shleibim kaim ksiva. It wasn't written in the proper place to write it. We explained that the height of a behema is like this. Okay. One side is here, the other side is the meat. If one just shaves down the here and sands it down, and the other side as well, but it stays one unit, this is called gvil, and you're allowed to write a Sefer Torah on the outside. If you split the hide into two, the outside is called klaf, and then you have to write it on the inside. And Dochsustus is not kosher for a Sefer Torah. So if you wrote it on gvil, but not on the right side. That means if it's the gvil, if it's one unit, you have to write it on the outside, on the side of the here. You wrote it inside. Or if it's klaf, it was split, and this is the outer layer. You're supposed to write it on the inside, and you write it on the side of this. All invalidates. It wasn't written in the place where it's meant to be written. For example, ala gvil, if it was gvil, it was one unit, you wrote it on the place of the flesh. Bala klaf, if it was split into two, and the klaf is the outer layer, you wrote it, instead of writing in the inside, you wrote it on the outside, on the area of the hair of the fur. Shenichta miktsas al gvil, miktsas al klaf. Or you wrote it properly, but the Torah is a mixture. Half of it is on gvil and half of it is on klaf. Shenichta bal duchsustos, if you wrote it on the inner layer, period. Shenichta bloisit, if it was written without scraping in lines, so it's written properly. Ches, the eighth soul. Shenichta bloi shachra. It wasn't written with a black ink that actually can maintain its color. Tes shenichta b'shar l'shanis wasn't written in lashon hakodesh. Sheksave yud sheksave api kodesh. Someone does not believe, and mukshartem muksaftem. Someone that's chayiv b'ksiva. Hala oy kayoytze by mishar psulim, or any other psulim that invalidate the person writing. Yud Aleph the 11th shekasav askars blokamon. He wrote the Abish's name without writing, without kavanah. He missed one letter of the Torah. He added even one letter to the Torah. The 13th soul, the 14th soul, one letter touched another, in which case it's not mukav sil. Halacha the 15th. The letter changed, and you can't read that letter. So it seems like a different ois. Bein beikar ksiva, bein benekev, whether it's the way the ikar ksiva initially the way it was written, or bein benekev it's a hole, bein bekera got ripped, bein betishus got smudged or got rubbed out. He brought letters too close or too far. One word looks like two words, because he separated, or he brought them so close together that two words look like one word. Yud Zayin, the 17th psul, Sheshina Tzuras HaParashiyos. A parsha stuma, which is meant to start in the middle of the line, he started at the beginning of the line like a parsha psucha, or vice versa. Sheshina tzuras hashiros, which is meant to be like a segel, as we put in the shir to prakim or Perek, that it's supposed to be written blocks like two segos, for example, and he changed it. He wrote it to like a regular ksav, or vice versa. The 19th shekasa b'shara ksav geshira. He wrote a regular parsha with the shapes of ksiva, of ashira, of shetafar areas below gida tahira, or he sewed the hides together, the klafim, not with gidim of a behemoth Torah. Now, these are 20 psulim that are validated the Sefer Torah and turn it into a chumash that could be learned from, but cannot be read in public, doesn't have the kedusha of the Sefer Torah. Ushayat varim, however, all the other examples we brought are lemitzvah, v'lo likuva. We brought various tagim and many different things that beautify the Sefer Torah, but it's not likuva. Halacha beis, Sefer Torah kosher. Now, what happens when you have a kosher Sefer Torah? No, you can by kedusha yisera. You have to act towards it with tremendous holiness. The covet gadol, and give it tremendous honor. A person, I own it. You're not allowed to sell it, even if you have nothing to eat. Even if I have a whole bunch of Sefer Torah. Even if you have an old one and you want to sell the old one to buy a new one, it's not a business. It's not a property you use. For two reasons alone. If he's going to go learn Torah, and it's costing the travel, or it's going to cost him the tuition, or he's going to be able to marry with this guilt. And even in these two instances, it's only providing you didn't have any other income or any other way to cover your travel to learning, or your learning, or marriage. Halacha gimel. Sefer Torah shabala oishin nifsal. What happens? Sefer Torah that got rubbed out, or shenifsal became invalid for one of the 20 reasons we brought. This is how you are going. Is it? You bury it in a kli cheres earthenware, so that will disintegrate. You bury it near a talmid chacham. This will further on be referred to as gniza. The mantle of a Sefer Torah that became rubbed out. You can use it as shrouds for a mace. That's another mitzvah, and it's going to be buried, and that will be considered its gniza. Halacha test. Interesting. We use shrouds just white. Like halacha dal. Not to be mevayish, those that don't have. Tik shochan Sefer Torah v'honach boy. Pouch, box, a kli that was prepared for the Sefer Torah, and it was placed inside. The different like the paroiches and the oroin, the Aron Kodesh, the Menachem Menachem by Sefer Torah, if they had its own little like towers, little built box that they put it in. Bisha Sefer Torah tik. Some old souls, they have a chair that has two holes, and they seat the second Sefer Torah for Chodesh and the like. Instead of a person holding it, they placed it over there. So that special seat, Hakol Tashmishik Dusha, and they're considered, they service a Chayfetz Kaddish, and therefore are not allowed to throw it. When they break or they become worn out, they can't fit their purpose anymore. They are buried. When we're talking about the platform on which the Chazan stands, or inscriptions of olive bays that they teach children with, they do not have any kedusha, namely kedushas haguf. Rather, they have the kedushas beis haknesses. Kedushas beis haknesses means it has the level of kedusha that toif is dumb of, that you're allowed to only sell it to for specific purposes, to do another thing of kedusha, but it doesn't need to be buried. That's what it means. The pomegranates, or the type of ksarim that they would put from silver or gold that are done for beauty. These are tashmishik kedusha. They service the kedusha itself. You're not allowed to use them for mundane purposes, even to sell. Unless you're swapping it for something higher. Now, one is allowed to place one Sefer Torah on top of another Sefer Torah. For sure, you're allowed to put it on chumashim, which are scrolls that children or people learn from, but they're not kedushas sefer Torah. Menachem chumashim al gabe neviim uksuvim, and a chumash should go on top of neviim uksuvim, Yeshua Sheftim Shmuel, etc. Abba and Malachim. Aval ein menachem neviim uksuvim al gabe chumashim. You can't put neviim uksuvim. Uksuvim is all the Megillas and Tillim and the like. You can't put that on. And Nevi'im neither, you can't put them on a chumash. B'loi chumashim al gabe sefer Torah, you can't put a chumash on a sefer Torah. V'chol kisei hakodesh. Any things that were written, any kisei hakodesh, holy purposes. For example, afilu halachas v'agados, even sifrei halacha or agada, they're not mamish the Eibishter spoken word. Also lazarka, you're not allowed to throw it away in a derogatory way. Rather, they have to be properly discarded. Or nigdas. Hakameim shesh b'minyan shel kisei hakodesh. The kameim, these people used for sgolas, and they had on them heilige psukim and the like. You can't go into the bathroom unless they are they're coated either with leather or they're covered. There's a kiss for it, a pocket for it. It's covered over. Halach above. You can't go in. He can't hold the sefer Torah in his hand. He comes to the place of berachas and go into a bathhouse or the bathroom or the basic first cemetery. Even though it's covered in its wrappings and its mentlach, and it's even in its box. And he has to distance himself 4 amas from the mace, from the bathhouse, or from the basic keys. If he's not dressed properly, he's not allowed to hold it. Also, you're not even allowed to sit on a bed on which a sefer Torah lays. Now, you're not sitting for sure, not on it. You're not holding it in a proper way. Halacha Zayin. The house in which the sefer Torah finds itself. You're not allowed to be together, relations, until you take it out. Or until you cover it, you put it in a kli. And that kli, which could be designated for it, has to be in a different kli that's not designated for it. There are the opinions that this only works by tefillin. If this second kli was also, this box that you put the sefer Torah in was also planned for a sefer Torah, afilu asar kelim, and 10 kelim zebazach kli echad, they consider one kli. They make a mechitza the height of 10 tefachim. If you don't have a different house to put it in, obviously, if you have a different house, you should do it. Also, all these coverings don't help, as opposed to tefillin. Halacha ches. Now, in regards to a spiritual tumah, in cleanliness, impurity, does that require that one refrain from zakter? Kol atmeim, afilu nidas, afilu kuti. Even if it's a nida or a kuti, mutar lachas sefer Torah v'likros ba. He's allowed to hold the sefer Torah or read shein sefer Torah mekabel tumah. Sefer Torah not mekabel tumah. V'hu shlo yadu metunachas, providing that their hands are not dirty, or meluchlachas betit, or they have cement on the hand. In which case they should wash their hands. Only afterwards they'll touch it. If a person sees the sefer Torah while he's walking, while the sefer Torah is moving, he has to get up and stand before it. They only maintain their standing either till that person stops holding sefer Torah, which means it reached its place, and then they could sit down, the sefer Torah, so to speak, resting there. Until he moves far enough, they don't see it anymore. At that point, they're allowed to sit down. And now we're how do you prepare the aura? It's a mitzvah to prepare a place for the sefer Torah in a way that's honorable, and to beautify it more than you would assume possible or appropriate. And the things that are written on the Aseres HaDibros, that's what's written in every vart of Torah. There's no part of Torah that's less. Lo yarok adam connected Sefer Torah. He's not allowed to kiss. He's not allowed to spit. In Torah, even if he has different Galar connected, he's not allowed to uncover his nakedness. Stretch out his feet in front of it like he's lax. You shouldn't carry it on his head like this is a package or like this is a burden. He shouldn't turn his back to the Sefer Torah unless it is on a platform, it's higher. So it's just Latzim, it's 10 tvachim off the ground. It's not on the same plateau. If he's going from place to place, and Sefer Torah is with him, don't put it into sackcloth in a bag, and then you put it on the donkey, and it's bouncing on the side, and you're sitting on the donkey. If you're afraid, what would require a person? He's sitting on the donkey holding it. What happens if he's going to carry Sefer Torah b'frat with the crown? Then the ganavim are going to. He's afraid of ganavim. Mutter in that case, the main sham pachad. If he's not afraid, manicha the right place, the right way, the optimal is to put it in his bosom, but leaning on his heart, connected his heart to the who roichav al behema, and in which case he'll ride the donkey or the animal, and that way travel. Anyone sitting in front of a Sefer Torah, now we're talking about Sefer Torah that reached its place. That's why he's allowed to sit. But even then, when you're sitting, it has to be in a way that you acknowledge the existence of the Sefer Torah in front of you and the presence of the Sefer Torah. So you have to sit with a heavy head. That means it's on your mind. The aim of a facher with fear and trepidation. The Torah stands testimony and the truthful testimony for all those that are born into this world. And tells you about the Eibishter and about the history of the world and about the mitzvahs the Eibishter gives us. That it's for you. It's over there. It should be for you as testimony. Find your own ways of giving honor to the Torah. Said, someone that Rahman desecrates Torah, his body, and he is mechulal. He should be desecrated by others. That means he should be frowned upon. Someone that gives honor to the Torah, his body is mechubed on others. Others respect him. Nigmeru hilcha sefer Torah brach meshmaya mazel tamazel. We concluded hilcha sefer Torah. I'll tell you a joke. You should finish with simcha. Simcha tetzeu. There's once a year, we just read over here the din of a person traveling on a donkey, how we should travel. And this is in Mispachad Bnei Ganavim. Today's day and age, there's another pachad. If you go through with too many valuables, so you could be taxed if you go into another country. So this person's traveling with a Sefer Torah, and he's thinking, what am I going to do with this Kosher Torah? So it's worth a heavy geld. He's thinking, what could he do? We get to come to Ayidala, Kenza Falazn. Took the crown of the Sefer Torah, he put it on his head. He took the yad of the Sefer Torah. Mr. Tax comes to look in the car, and then he stands up with his crown. The guy puts his head, bows. He puts the yad on his head, and he says, "Thank you very much." He goes back into the car. Vayesui. We're going into Av. Av. How are you memayit in Yanav of Av is besimcha. Shenichnas Av memayit in besimcha. Av comes. How are you memayit in Yanav of Av through simcha? Be freilach and bring the gula shleima. Take it from Yanav Shevili based on Mikdash now.